Okay, we're live on YouTube now too.
Okay, so can we begin?
Go ahead, Alesh.
Okay, let's get started. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna start. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the first meeting of Silicon Valley SIGGRAPH for the
Go ahead,
2020.
Alesh.
I'm starting it. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I said okay. Let me start over again. Sorry. Good evening. Welcome to the first meeting of Silicon Valley SIGGRAPH for the 2023 to 2024 season. Tonight, we will be discussing some of the exciting events which happened at this year's SIGGRAPH conference in LA. I am Alesh Drunkirk, Chair of Silicon Valley ACM SIGGRAPH. Before we begin, let me tell you about Silicon Valley ACM SIGGRAPH. Silicon Valley SIGGRAPH typically meets in various Silicon Valley companies about once a month. Our meetings are great for networking and learning the latest technologies. We also have job announcements from time to time. Sorry. Since COVID hit, we have been online. However, we hope to get back to meeting in person eventually. Now let me introduce the officers of our chapter from whom you will hear about SIGGRAPH 2023. So I am Alesh Drunkirk. I'm the chair of the chapter. Brent Simon is vice chair. Carl Anderson is treasurer. And Ken Turkowski is a member at large. And finally, this could be you, because we are always looking for new volunteers. So if you like what you see here, please consider joining us. Officer positions are voluntary. However, there are several benefits. Usually, it's a great way to network since you work to put together meetings for speakers. You can also organize meetings around your interests. And finally, it's a fun group of people to work with. There are no time requirements, so each volunteer just gives what they can. If what you see tonight sounds interesting to you, you can contact us. We can be contacted through our website, or we also have a meetup where most of our meetings are listed. You can also email us at this email address. For those of you who are watching this at YouTube, these will be in the description. As I just mentioned, we also have a YouTube channel, and this is where you can find previous meetings recorded there. If you want to find this information later, just Google Silicon Valley SIGGRAPH. And so now we'll start with tonight's presentation. So tonight we will hear about SIGGRAPH 2023 from the officers of Silicon Valley ACM SIGGRAPH. And I will begin first. And so here are my top 3 takeaways from SIGGRAPH 2023. So what I'm looking for in SIGGRAPH is what's coming up and what's in the new future. What's coming up and what's going to come in the future. So there are a lot of exhibits in areas such as history and VR, but mainly I'm focused on future technologies. So begin with my number 3 takeaway this year is in the area of quantum computing. Usually quantum computing isn't seen as part of SIGGRAPH, and this year it was a small part of SIGGRAPH. I attended 2 sessions on quantum computing because I didn't really know anything about it, so I just wanted to learn something about it. And the first session was a keynote by Dr. Dario Gil, and he's the director of research at IBM, and he gave the opening day keynote on quantum computing. There was also a class on quantum computing taught by Andrew Glassner. And so these 2 sessions discussed the future of quantum computing. And so my main key takeaway, which I was surprised to learn about, is that quantum computing is becoming real and will be solving real problems in the next 5 years. At least that's what the speakers in these sessions expect. And that was a big surprise to me because I personally think of quantum computing as some experiments in the laboratory which will be used in computing one day. But at SIGGRAPH, I heard that quantum computing is coming soon, and we should be ready for it. So just some facts about quantum computing is, today IBM has a working computer with 400 qubits. So qubits are, I guess if you don't know, it's just a way of representing information in a quantum computer, similar to bits, but they're much, but bits that they can represent much more information. So a 400 quantum qubit computer might not seem very large, but the qubits can actually represent 2 to the n states. So a quantum computer with only 280 quantum bits would represent 2 to the 280 states, which is approximately the same number of atoms as in the visible universe. So what this means is to represent the same information in a classical computer, you would have to use all the atoms in the visible universe to represent ones and zeros. And IBM has, or as I mentioned, already a computer with 400 qubits, and plans to build a quantum computer with thousands of qubits. So quantum computing is real, and if you actually want to use it today, you can actually use a real quantum computer over the internet. If you want to try it out, just search for the IBM Quantum Experience, and you can find there's a free quantum computer you can use, and also bigger quantum computers that you can use if you want to pay something. And so my number 2 thing, which I found interesting in SIGGRAPH, was in the area of light field displays and glasses-free 3D displays. So, I mean, for me, 15 years ago, I thought there was a lot of interest in light field displays and light field cameras. And in 2006, Ren Ng founded Litro and launched one of the first commercial light field cameras. And about that time, I bought one of the first Illum cameras, which they were called. And I thought light field photography and light field displays were the future of photography and displays. Well, it didn't turn out that way, however. And so, since then, interest in light field seemed to have died down. Some of the problems in early cameras and displays was that the imagery was low. The Illum only produced 4 megapixel images, and light field displays were in the early stages. One of the main features of the Illum camera was that it could refocus images after they were taken, and that's a pretty amazing technical feat if you know anything about conventional photography, and it seemed really cool. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, when they actually use the camera as a practical application, didn't really give the photographer very much benefit, because cameras can really focus really well, and then refocusing the image isn't really necessary. And so, I went to all the SIGGRAPHs since then, and in 2019, which was the last SIGGRAPH I attended in person, there were some virtual ones I attended, but in that SIGGRAPH, I don't remember seeing anything in particular in the area of light fields or light field cameras. However, what I noticed today is that the field seems to be reemerging, and interest in the field seems to be coming back. So there were many light field displays and glasses-free displays at SIGGRAPH, and so here I'll highlight 2 of them. The most interesting one is, you can see in the bottom left corner, is you can see images of it's a demo by NVIDIA showing a 3D teleconferencing system. So it uses a light field display to show you a 3D image of a person, and it uses the image is created from a 2D photo using AI, and it was a pretty impressive demo at SIGGRAPH. Also, in emerging technologies, there was new work from Stanford University to make VR, which can produce imagery, which we can focus on different parts of the image. So what I mean by this is, if you wear a headset with this type of technology, if you look at different parts of your image, your eye will focus just like it does in the natural world. And we've seen this type of in the past, but what's new this year is the use of holography to overcome some of the limits of past approaches. Yeah. Also, in the exhibition, there were a lot of many glasses, free 3D displays, and just these weren't light field displays, but they used most of them used eye tracking to create like images for the left and right eye, and you didn't need to wear any special glasses to see the 3D effects. I mean, in terms of light field cameras, I didn't see any light field cameras this year. However, now that light field displays are getting better, I think a light field camera would be great for generating content for them. Like generating imagery from a single image like NVIDIA did was impressive. However, it has its limits because the AI has to be trained for every specific thing you need to generate images for. For example, what NVIDIA showed, they showed a way of showing faces, but I was wearing a mask. So when it showed me without a mask, because it was only trained on faces, it was only trained on faces without masks. So to show people with masks, it would need to be trained again to show people with masks. And then you need to be, I guess we need to be trained for all the objects in the scene. So instead of like a light field camera would get around this problem, you can just take a picture of anything and project it in something like this 3D video teleconferencing system. And 15 years ago, perhaps the refocusing wasn't exciting enough to get people excited about light field cameras. However, if you have light field displays, this would probably drive the adoption of light field cameras also, because if you could create something which looks like a hologram, I think personally this would be very exciting with your camera. And so my key takeaway from this area is that this area is improving rapidly, and it's looking really well. It's looking really good now. I mean, but I'm still not 100% sure if this area will take off for sure, because even though the technology has advanced a lot, I think we still need someone like Steve Jobs to look at the technology and package it into something that people can use, and also to define a usage model that people can use. And this hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. So, so my number one takeaway from SIGGRAPH is that AI is everywhere. AI was a big part of SIGGRAPH this year, and there were a lot of sessions dedicated to AI, like this session on the left, which is text-generated AI. And this session, they talked about ways to improve imagery from text, images generated from text. So when for example, if you type in a picture of something that you want, and the AI will create an image for you. But AI was also in other sessions where you might not expect AI to be. And one of the papers which interested me was this paper on computational long exposure mobile photography. And this was a paper on creating images similar to traditional, creating images similar to those found in traditional cameras using cell phone cameras. And this technique, you would take multiple images from on a cell phone camera and combine them into one image to make a image that looked like it was taken from a camera, but was a long exposure. It was a cell phone camera. I guess you can't really control the shutter speed very much, so you can't really have long exposures like in traditional cameras. So this will simulate that using computational photography. But what's interesting, one of the things which caught my eye was that part of this algorithm is actually using AI, and it's using AI, for example, to detect objects in the scene, so it can know which objects to blur and which objects to not blur. And so one of my key takeaways from this area is that in the photography community, I noticed that there's a lot of controversy about AI, and some people think AI will kill photography because AI can now be used to make images. And people really, on the other hand, people seem to really like, the ability to take photos with their cell phones and enhancing these images so they look like images taken from real cameras. However, what a lot of people don't realize is these are also I mean, you might call this computational photography, but these are also a lot of AI based, and I think many of them couldn't be done using without AI. So, if you're, I mean, so on the one hand, people don't like it if you take an image and, for example, create fake seagulls in like a beach scene using AI, but then if you take, images like this with a cell phone camera and make it look like a real camera, people seem to be really excited by that. But for me, in the future, I think it means that all images are kind of fake, because if you define a real image as the image directly from a camera, then maybe all cell phone cameras are fake images, because their cell phones are actually doing a lot of processing on the imagery behind the scenes, and a lot of that is using AI. And that's the last of my slides. So I'd like to hand it over to Brent.
Sure, Lesh.
Okay.
Thank you very much for speaking. So let me go share my screen. Oops. All right. So can everyone see mine?
Not yet.
Oh. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Now we can see it. Thanks.
Perfect. So just continuing on, one of my top threes events from SIGGRAPH is the VR theater. And what's really amazing about this year's VR theater is that it revolves around the theme of immersive storytelling and having people who don't have access to virtual reality give them this chance to experience it firsthand. One of these photos is taken by I think David. He was working in the VR theater and shared it to ACM SIGGRAPH. In the VR theater, after purchasing a ticket, I believe is in one of the hallways in the convention center. So there were many presentations being shown in the VR theater, and these were the 4 movies that was presented. So first we have Lustration, which depicts of a man who is basically facing a midlife crisis and has to go through some tragic things in his life. We also have a second presentation, You Destroy, We Create, which basically gives life to what is basically gives what's life like after the whole Ukrainian and Russian war. And the storyteller of this series, presented by Gaytree, was that he wanted to put the viewer in the Ukrainian shoes about these war-torn series, and he creates arts from them. The third presentation, which is essentially my favorite, is Luna, episode 1, Left Behind, created by Cheruvit. She, I believe, creates one of really compelling storytelling series about helping a young girl through basically a war-torn city. And then lastly, Missing 10 Hours in VR, created by a series of animators of basically the harshness of night drinking and the repercussions that happens afterwards, and basically puts you in the shoes of one of the victims. So just to summarize, the overall theme is compelling storytelling, and basically you're putting yourself into the shoes of the protagonists in these films. So I just want to talk about the pros and cons of the VR theater and just want to say my thoughts. So pros, a lot of these films that was presented in this 1 hour session were very thought provoking. It basically allows you to see firsthand the struggles that many people face, whether it be PTSD, trauma, mental illness, and just being embodied in it. And with the cons, there were a time constraint. I think when I was being seated, I wasn't instructed that we could move around while being in the VR space. Because there were in the films, you get to interact with bottles, some leaves, even helping Luna out while pointing at like an enemy robot. And that was I feel like the experience would have been a lot better if we were told to stand. But overall, these stories, just like my previous slide, were very thought-provoking. And then I just want to give you a little walkthrough of those who have not been into the VR theater in SIGGRAPH this year. Here's a little snippet of what it's like. Yeah, the space was pretty spacious. I believe many folks, I think after me, were able to stand up and interact with a lot of the objects in the virtual space. So kudos to them to do that. So just to like end it off, oops, not sure how to go to the next slide. Yeah, just to end it off, the VR Theater's director, Julia Reed, embodies this message that we are meant for belonging, and can't really see the digital embodiment in immersive storytelling. And it's with these stories that helps viewers like understand people's traumas, mental illness, and just see it through their lens. And I think that's really important to take apart from the VR theater experience, at least for me. I also want to open the floor. Has anyone in here been into VR theater? Let me just open up the slide very quick. All right. I guess since there isn't really like feedback, I guess if you want my opinion, I believe my favorite films, at least from the presentations that were presented, were both Luna, which is the third film, and lastly, The Missing 10 Hours. Those were really immersive, and I really enjoyed every single bit of them. Okay, without further ado, I'll pass the baton to Carl.
Can you hear me now? Actually, it's my. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Carl.
We can hear you
Okay.
right on your screen.
And yes, Joshua, if you ever get the chance, please join the VR theater. It's quite an experience.
a second here. So I was unable to attend SIGGRAPH this year, but tried to help out before it had begun, and was looking more backwards over the 50 years here. So one of the things they had planned was the time tunnel, and they were looking for input as to what should go into that. The time tunnel. I don't know how many of you attended or saw it, but we were trying to fill it with little factoids of key times, key events over the 50 years of SIGGRAPH conferences. So there were various categories on what the SIGGRAPH related, or animation, or art, or hardware. And so we were trying, a group of us made SIGGRAPH Pioneers, which is a group of people who have had 20 years or more involved with computer graphics, can join. But they also open it up to more people to help try to fill in the facts. So that was fun, reminiscing about the past 50 years. When let's see, I was having a little trouble. My background wasn't familiar enough with some of the art categories. That actually I should. Anyway, there's a big team, or big people came in and helped out. Brent came and helped add some items himself there too. So it was a lot of fun trying to go through and figure out, get the right years, get the facts right, and put it up there. I was not familiar enough with the art category, so I tried to use ChatGPT to see what it came up with for the past 50 years of key artworks. And when I tried to verify any of them, I think nothing came up. So I think it was hallucinating the entire computer art world. So that was one step in the past there. The next step is this was put out prior to this, which was people reminiscing about the conferences over the past 50 years, and it appeared in IEEE Computer Graphics and Applications. I'll be posting links to these things later. But it's a lot of anecdotes of what took place and all the things, like the first film show was kind of an impromptu event where they, basically were shooting on a wall, people bringing tapes in and such. So if you want to look back to see, for instance, the one time we had a conference here in San Jose in 1977, and that's where they first had T-shirts, and they were made on the fly. There was kind of a last minute, we'll take the logo and put them on T-shirts, and she was ironing them on and selling them at the conference there, and it was part of the fashion show they would have around the swimming pool there too. So that's the one time SIGGRAPH had occurred in San Jose. And the next one here is a volume 2 of Seminole Graphics papers. So the original volume was set in 1998 for 25th anniversary, and so the second one was published for 2023. So these are some of the key works, key developments in computer graphics. So both of these are available, PDFs available, and likewise the ACM Digital Library was opened up during the pandemic, but it currently is free for I think up to the year 2000. If you want to look at history of developments or need to reference them. So that was my 3 items there for not going to the conference.
Thanks, Carl and Brent. So we'll now open it up to participant questions or any comments anyone wants to add to what we've said.
Let's see. I think I stopped share, didn't I? Nope.
I was not able to go, but I'm very interested in trying to attend the next one. So it was just nice to be able to tune in and get some other people's feedback on some of the cool stuff that they've been checking out at 2023 this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe the next SIGGRAPH that's happening in 2024 is going to be at Denver. Anyone is attending SIGGRAPH next year, please correct me on that.
No, that is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
Were you able to attend this year, Richard?
My first SIGGRAPH was 1982. So. Interesting is, when I was on the conference advisory group back in I was on there for about 6 years, and my responsibility early on was to summarize all the paper and write a write-up for the publicity people about use of AI. I still remember the first year I did it, we were only like 6 paper. Then it just grew exponentially after that.
Yeah, it's a lot of AI now.
And I gave a talk at Stanford a year ago, just over a year ago, where all my talk slides were generated on AI.
Really?
And that was very confusing for this for the attendee back then, because they had no idea what I was talking about. Now everybody knows about it, but a year ago, it's amazing how much have transpired within this last year. For me, this year, even though I didn't attend, I think the biggest breakthrough is how much advances there have been in Gaussian splattering. And I know you guys didn't mention that, but to me, that's going to have dramatic impact on a lot of usage of graphics.
In what way?
Because now you can recreate 3D environment without polygons, in a whole different approach, right? The traditional method of creating 3D no longer applies if you use it go down that path. I can imagine people creating tools and everything in that space that'd be completely different than what we're used to. No different than when we started computer graphics back in the early 80s. There were no tools per se. I had to write all the tools myself. And I sort of feel that way today with some of these new techniques, right? All the new tools created using things like Stable Diffusion the last year, and now more recently, the last month or so, using Gaussian splattering. And you can see all these really cool stuff people are doing now that's completely going to turn things upside down, in my mind. It's very hard to keep up, I think, for the audience, for old guys like me, trying to keep up all the changes and stay up to date is a non-trivial problem, to say the least.
There's a lot. What about generative AI in terms of some of the things?
I think that's evolved a lot. I mean, I've used it pretty much daily for the last year, and I think we're right in the threshold where people can build a new set of tools that let you use generative AI, right? I have a friend who just wrote a book using sort of an advanced ChatGPT to help him write a book, and I used generative AI to create a book cover for him, right? Normally that would have taken a long time, but it took me literally like 2 hours to do it. And it's print quality material. So it's just interesting to experiment in all this new space. And now the consistency and the use of generative AI in 3D space is have improved tremendously in the last few months. I mean, this is crazy. This stuff advances every day almost, at least from my perspective. And it's hard to keep up with it. And people are starting to realize they have to build a whole new set of tools for them, because you have to think about things very differently. Maybe I'm just an old guy, that's why I think that way, but it's very exciting. It's fun.
I have a question for maybe Richard. Maybe Richard can answer that. Like in terms of generative AI, it seems like all the examples I've seen, they don't seem, like in terms of shading, they seem to be like we call, say, flat shaded. They don't seem to have lighting. Is that the case, or is there a way to like add lighting?
That's all changing very quickly right now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's already been in use in the production world, almost mandatory now for the creative process, right? In the old days, so now in the 3D space, people are generating texture with it, and soon they'll be generating models with it. Right. And then next thing you know, you'll be doing, well, a lot of it's great for visual effects as well. And you can see more and more of that trickle in the next few months.
But I'm sorry to interrupt. I haven't seen really the ability to pull a 3D model off of the 2D image that is either shaded or textured.
Yeah, people are because now they can generate rotational imagery from it. So once you can move around an object, then you can, using other AI technique, you can now generate a 3D model from it. So it's becoming very plausible. It's not production ready today, but I wouldn't hope. I think it will happen much sooner than we expected to. I'm just been blown away by how the stability in generative AI has improved in just the last few weeks or months. Because at first people because if you understand how the math works, it's really just noise, right? You become really unstable very easily. But people have found ways to stable it over time and over movement. So now they can be more coherent and be able to extract more information from it. So it'd be interesting. I mean, I've seen a few trailers of film done completely with generative AI. They're pretty amazing.
Like that, and the Barbie remake that was done in 3 minutes.
Yeah. And then but now that was, not that long ago, but now the stability and imagery have improved quite a bit in the last month. So I think.
Yeah, it's getting more difficult to discern between real art and like generative AI art. Because it used to be, when you create generative AI art, there used to be like artifacting on some images, and now it's getting more stable as the years, as the months and months go by. And
Yeah, I think people have learned because of using LoRa, people have been able to train model to focus on specific needs they have. Let's say I want to focus on ancient Rome. If I can train on top of an existing model things to focus on area that I'm interested in. So you can sharpen the focus in the particular creative space. And then you improve the quality substantially, right? You can focus on illustrative art, you can focus on photography. You can now, based on this huge model, you can now change the focus into a specific area to give you much more consistent quality output. I think it's just interesting to see how people are learning new ways to use these models. And most of it is trial and error, but you see a lot of advances in on almost daily basis.
oh yeah, there's always something to discover, like each month, now that we're like in the AI era at this point.
Yeah.
Like one thing I kind of noticed now is there has been a huge slew of audios done specifically done through AI of using famous celebrities or characters or animated like characters just to say some certain voice lines or even sing.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
that's
getting
why
more
the
impressive.
Screen Actor Guild is having a real difficult time coming up with a contract because it's a crazy problem, right? Because if you're an extra on a set, they can capture your image and reuse it for eternity. They'll never hire you
Yeah.
again, right? So it's a challenge problem. Well, I was the first supervisor to do a digital human double. In the early Batman Forever, I did a digital stunt double with very primitive back then. But early 90s, I supervised the first digital stunt double in a movie. And after that, every time I give a talk about it in Hollywood, the Screen Actor Guild lawyer would always come up to my podium and put his card on my table and he always say to me, "We're watching you." I mean, that was a long time ago. But now we finally get to the point where it's becoming practical, and I'm just totally blown away by the quality of CG. I mean, it's still expensive. All the big visual effects houses, they can do amazing things. Not cheap, but some of these new technology might shorten that production time and lower the cost substantially. Right. There's several factors of AI that's impacting. I'm on board of several universities, and there's a huge problem right now creating for school, right? How do you determine if a student portfolio is legit? It's almost impossible, right? But also the biggest challenge for, I don't know you guys in education or not, is that most schools are not ready to teach a lot of these new techniques, right? A lot of professors are playing catch up. Right, I was on an advisory board for UC, one of the UC, and one of the students won a contest at GTC on some AI technique. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, I'd like to go thank all the professors because I'm on the advisory board to help you win this award." And he pulled me aside. And he said, "I didn't learn it from them because they don't know how to teach this stuff. I learned it on my own." And that's a huge dilemma right now for the education world, right? Now, I know a lot of people in the AI world in the Bay Area, and it's tough. I don't know how school can keep up with these changes.
Absolutely. There's also like a huge like ethics going on with the whole use of AI and using it in their works.
Yeah, well, here's the worst problem, right? I gave, like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't able to attend because I had to give a speech in New Mexico. It was the group of astrophysics students, so it's a totally different group. But 3 of the students were assigned to give the intro of me to the audience. So they got up, gave this beautiful speech, and immediately I got up there and I said, "Look, great job using, Chat GDP, but that's not me, right? I'm not a public person. I don't go online and do social network and things like that. So my signal to noise ratio is pretty poor, right? So the Chat GDP would, hallucinate and assign me credit on things I absolutely didn't do, right? For example, they listed a Pixar film on my credit, right? Obviously I didn't do that. But the worst part, not only did they use that, was when I said that, the professor gave me this look because he had no idea they did that, right? That to me was the scariest part. Not the fact that they used ChatGPT and they didn't get correct result, but the fact that the professor had no idea they did that. That I think is going to be very disruptive to the educational world and to the working world as well, right? Professional world will be impacted as well. So
some of the talks we've had over at the SFACM have been dealing with verification. So they're trying to make that better AI, but it's still going to be an issue in general, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know some of the top AI people in the Bay Area, and they all agree there's no way they can be absolutely right, because the method they're using is not intelligent by any means, and they know that. There's nothing to do with intelligence, right? All it's doing is finding a local minimum in a very large high dimensional space. And if your signal to noise ratio is bad, you can have a lot of local minimum that lead to hallucination and incorrect answer. And there's no solved solution to that in the given methodology they're using, right? So it's going to be a big challenge.
Well, there is some post verification, so it's searching for the exact aspects of it in reliable sources. But yeah, it's not a trivial action to get it right.
Right. And a lot of these big companies do hire people to try to improve the quality of their output. But at the end, if your signal to noise ratio is low, then it's really hard to get good answer on edge stuff, right? And but it's a great tool. You just have to learn to use it properly.
Well, that's what I was doing with the art, computer art over the past 50 years. And what it seemed to do was pick semi-common names and putting them together for the names of people, artists, and for the names of works. It liked to do alliteration, 2-word alliteration in the titles. And they look very interesting, but I could not find them searching Google. So
yeah, so I think people always the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people think is, oh, there's intelligence there. There's really no intelligence. It's just a very good. I gave a talk at a CES a few years ago, and I basically said, look, AI, the way they're doing it now, which hasn't changed a whole lot. They go from CNN to now Transformer and so forth, but all they're looking for is just a best match. It's like a fortune teller. A good fortune teller can look at you, see how you're dressed, see how you talk, see what kind of watch you're wearing, see how you comb your hair, and infer from that enough information to fool you into believing that they know you, right? And that's really where we're at, right? And it's a really good fortune teller. I mean, amazing fortune teller. I mean, there's nothing, I'm not trying to shoot down what it does, but the thing is, you just have to be aware is not an absolute. It's really a great tool if you use it properly. Just talking to Andrew Glassner about this just a few days ago. And it's a
And then didn't Andy give a talk this year on quantum AI?
Yes, he gave a talk on the base fundamental of a class on the fundamental of quantum computing.
Well, I'm down in Los Angeles, which is also Hollywood, and I would have to say the studio executives are the most uptight about AI. I'd say the nerds of SIGGRAPH grasp like what you're saying, Richard, which is, it's not for the gullible. It's, you have to kind of know what's good and bad about it and just use what use sections of it. It's really for reference, but you really have to check everything, including, the artwork it generates and everything else. I would say that the studios, I'll quote Simpty's media technology presentation coming up here. The studios are disallowing them from even mentioning AI during this seminar. It's just there's it's because the writer strikes and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think they're doing it more out of politeness to not rile the strikers. But I thought that was an outrageous request to just not talk about it.
I mean, AI is really, I'll be frank. I mean, I'm old enough I can say anything I want and not piss off too many. Well, I can piss off people. Let's put it this way. I was in Hollywood for over 30 years, right? Working in that space. And one of the fundamental thing working with a lot of directors, obviously there's visionary director like Spielberg and other director, but most directors have no idea what they want, right? They just want you to show them a lot of stuff and pick the one, and they'll pick something they like. Right, so our job is really in the commercial side of using computer graphics is to generate a lot of things so the director can pick something they like, right? Well, guess what? AI is really good at that, right? You can spit out, a million options and the director can pick something in a very short time and give you, so that shortened that creative process, right? Often people think, oh, there's some creative vision. No, a lot of directors would cut, in the old days, would cut picture out of a magazine, post it on the wall, and pick the one they like, right? And they just steal ideas from other people. And I was talking to friends in a big film production recently, and they in the storyboard phase, they are forcing all the artists to use AI, generative AI, because they can provide a lot more options for the director to pick from. So is not something that people can hide from. People are using it. People are demanding it, and so it's just the big issue for Hollywood is ownership and rights to make money from, right? And that's the battle, right? It's always about money. Forget the technology. Forget being nice, creative. It has nothing to do with it. Hollywood. The bottom line is about money, right? So. I really felt bad then going to SIGGRAPH this year as the 50th anniversary. For some of you that went there, do you felt they captured the history of SIGGRAPH pretty well within the conference?
Well, there were some displays. Some of them were called the Cabinets of Curiosity. And it was pretty extensive, and that was beautifully covered. Some of the panel sessions definitely dove into, going all the way back through the film and video show, for instance. It was beautiful. I helped Ed Kramer do the Pioneers reception this year. And we had to bring in twice the amount of chairs that we expected because all the pioneers had showed up for this event. And we had Dan Foley and Andy Van Dam there talking about that original book they wrote on computer graphics. And they asked the room, how many people here have the book? And everyone in the room raised their hand. It was just filled with pioneers, and it was just so sweet.
That's great. Last year we had a 42nd anniversary party for PDI, and it's our reunion. And I took all our early work and early demo reels, and I used AI to up-res them all to HD. Because in the early days, everything was NTSC, so 60 field. But I up-resed it all to 60 frame. It's all on YouTube. if you search for PDI history, you can find all the video there.
I think that's fantastic. In fact,
Huh.
most people that were submitting videos did put it through an upres program of sorts.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can't just pull out a 3/4 inch or a beta and expect it to let the audience to actually think it is okay. Stanley and Stella was upres this year. It looked fantastic. So I was really pleased with the restoration of some of these old films. They just don't hold up in the digital library.
Yeah, because we were one of the first studio to do everything at 60 field interlaced. So what I did was
Yeah.
I convert everything to 60 frame HD. So they're all
So you just ran everything progressive from the interlace.
yeah, and filled and using AI to fill in the blank because you can't just randomly convert them to frame.
How did you do AI to fill in the blank?
There's a bunch of AI programs you can find. Some would do interpolation between the fields to generate, because the fields are offset from each other vertically. So you have to generate the right offset in between frames so you don't see this flickering. And so I generated that. It took me like a month to do that. There's probably some commercial software now you can probably get to do that. But it's all on the PDI history channel on YouTube. So
I did create a PDI playlist a long time ago on SFACM when they shut down. So in case you're interested in that too, I guess I'll have to look up the new stuff that you posted there.
Yep, look on PDI history channel. That's all. Most of the stuff is there.
And the black and white video was there.
Black
The
and
Mac,
white.
the Michael Jackson.
Well, they did a takedown on it, but then I filed because we have the right to show it because we did the work, and I designed a Monday Night Football opening for ABC a long time ago, and ABC came in and did a takedown, and so I wrote a letter to ABC, and they immediately released it, which the YouTube guys never heard people release it so quickly. But because I designed it and animated it myself, so they released it. So I think most of the stuff on this probably still good. There's some Michael Jackson stuff we're not allowed to show the unfinished work. So I don't think they're on there.
I did include black and white in the timeline.
Yeah.
Very nice. The timeline was spectacular.
Yeah.
Just so that for the people who didn't get to make it there was an uprising on the timeline because us nerds wanted to see it longer, and it was generally just up for 10 seconds and then they were on to something else. And there's no way you could grasp all that information in that short time. So they rescheduled everything and made sure that the timeline on Thursday at 5 o'clock just ran forever.
Are they going to put that online? So
I don't see how you can. I mean, it's done just like the Universal Studios King Kong new exhibit, where it's 6 projectors wide on either side of the room, and data was not repeated on all the way down.
They can put a VR online, like
you could put a VR online. I don't think the resolution really held up in that space.
Yeah.
They didn't have as good a projectors as they would have liked, but they got sponsorship for that. And
yeah,
I do have the some of the spreadsheets.
Oh, that would be golden.
But yeah, they kind of the way they built it there, you would think you could still do something desktop or scroll through the years and
I think they have to. There's people all over the conference saying, are you going to put it online?
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
So, we're all getting old. So some people are no longer around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the memory of SIGGRAPH is still very fresh in my mind. I mean, totally, I was a neophyte, knew nothing about computer graphics when I started. But it's through SIGGRAPH that I got to meet all these interesting people and felt I got the confidence from their support, right? And it wouldn't have possible without the SIGGRAPH community by any means.
Richard, I have the same thing too. I was first SIGGRAPH 1980
Uh,
out of Seattle, and it just changed my world in an instant. That one conference,
yeah,
never looked back.
Yep.
Mine was 81 in Dallas.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I was Boston 82. when I first
Boston
went.
82 with a really, really great reception.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to say? Gay, she used to be, you've been a long time volunteer for the local chapter here. Were you able to attend any of the recent SIGGRAPHs? I think everyone can unmute, right?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Repeat who the question was for.
Oh, Gay Graves volunteered several times, and I think did you do one of the art shows at Deanza? Were you in computer art show a long time ago? Anyway. Oh, there's the PDI one. Thank you for posting that.
I work
Actually,
in emerging technologies,
ah,
and I was the organizer of the sessions that were given with and put together the who was going to be on the sessions and give the presentations. So usually there's like about 4 or 5, something like that. And who would get up and give talks. And they would be people like from Disney, Pacific Data Ages, Data Images, and a lot of other places. So that was, and I was also involved with the art show as well.
wow.
Yeah, Gay, you were involved with the art show. Did you also generally attend the Yoichiro Kawaguchi receptions?
Oh yeah, always. I was looking through some things the other day and I still have a fan from one of his receptions.
Still my sake mug. Oh, the
Yeah.
I mean, well, his work is so identifiable. You know, you only need to see 1 second and you can say it's Yoichiro's artwork.
Going back in time quite a ways, I was the vice president for the Bay Area chapter of SIGGRAPH.
I did not know that.
And you did a lot of other volunteering, not just VP, in other years, right? So,
Oh yeah.
Does anyone have any more comments? We can maybe we should end it here. No one else has anything more to say?
I'm posting the other playlist, Richard, in the chat here. If you're interested. I put 115 different videos in it.
That's cool.
I'm not able to copy from chat or save chat either. So, I'd love to be able to see those last two links if you can somehow.
I think you can click on them, and it'll.
Yeah,
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, I took me a while to figure that too. Other talks that I like. How do I get this out of here?
Yeah. Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Or maybe we can bring this meeting. Okay,
I guess I have
go ahead,
one
Kyle.
question
Yeah, go ahead.
to put out. I see that there was talk about the future of quantum computing, and also there's been a lot of talk about the rapid development of AI. Just kind of open speculation for anyone who's willing to, talk about it. In the far-flung future, the idea of AI and quantum computers being used together for quantum AI, what would that even look like in terms of its repercussions on what it could be used for? Kind of like a impacting day-to-day life aspect. I'm just having a hard time picturing both put together, to be honest.
I mean, I know they did talk about, like, some people are developing neural networks that can run on quantum computers. But yeah, I don't know anyone if it's what the repercussions would be. I guess it's not clear.
Yeah, I think the term repercussions again dips down into those who aren't using it correctly or don't know how to, or have been misled. But I think a lot of the menial jobs that we've been doing can be helped by AI, and the great vast universe of ours can be better explored. And I think, our whole humanity focus will shift towards that which we should probably have been doing all along.
One issue I see with AI right now that is worrisome for me, having worked in this for a long time and seeing people serving like apprentice, following a senior animator, for example, and growing the talent and skill over time. But with the onset of AI, a lot of the menial job instead of using an apprentice, you just use an AI system. So we lose that position where people can become a apprentice to grow their skill over time. So when the current generation of creative leads retire, I'm not sure where the next group of creative people are going to come from, because they'll be working with a lot of AI tools to remove a lot of that junior position. So that's my biggest worry. It's just developing the next generation of leadership in the creative space.
No, I see what you mean. That makes sense. Well, because we've seen a similar thing happen in other industries, not necessarily tech related, but like in machining.
Right.
For instance, there's like older generations, like the ones that made like the NASA rocket thrusters, for instance. It's a completely different generation of machinists versus, with modern computers, modern machines, and modern manufacturing techniques. The modern generation is a very different kind of worker compared to the ones from the past. More precise in a way, because of all the modern tools we have available, but there's less, I don't know what's the correct way to word it, because it's still a high skill thing, regardless of whether they were the old generation or the new generation, but you cannot recreate some of these older works of manufacturing that they had in the past as easily, because people don't have the skill set anymore that was more common back then.
Yeah, I was watching the Nova episode where they were repairing Notre Dame and trying to understand how they made some of the things they did, or what they did to create the works there. So, Joan, did you want to ask your question about emerging technologies?
I don't know. You're in charge of time here. I've been chatting away. I don't mean to take up all this time, but I thought emerging technologies was huge, one, and two, I went through it and I literally could go stop and look at every single thing there, talk to the people, and it was really amazing. Emerging technologies.
I think I see that every year or something. It's amazing, all the things, and whoever picks what goes there does a great job.
Yeah, I think it was Miss Shuda was in charge of it this year.
Yeah, she was.
Hmm. And the art gallery was stunning too.
Can you mention one thing at the emerging technologies that stuck out in your mind there?
Well, I would have to agree with you guys, which was was it the NVIDIA conferencing tool?
Yeah, it was in the NVIDIA 3D conferencing tool. That was really cool.
I thought that had great potential. They still need a year to develop it. It's not ready for public yet. But it was definitely, you could see it being able to work. I think IBM's working on one too. And I think there's a couple others as well. So, but that was the one that hit the floor that really splashed at everyone. And then also, in the film show, it was interesting that still everyone's favorite was the things that looked like PDI from 20 years ago, was, birds running around. I think it was called Birds. Seagulls trying to save very animated, trying to save their eggs. Everybody fled because the island was about to have a volcano go off. So all the birds fled to the ocean, except for these two who wanted to bring their eggs with them out to the ocean. It was very funny. It was very, very funny. Really, really well blocked out and storied and delightful. No English spoken at all, just, quack quacks at each other. You had to be there.
Okay, I think it's getting close to 8:30, so maybe we should wrap it up then. Any final comments anyone wants to make? All right, let's
Thank you for putting this together. I look forward to seeing you in person in Colorado next year.
yeah, that will hopefully we'll see you sometime too. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, everyone, and hopefully you'll come to our next meeting also. We'll look for our meetup and we'll post the details there. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Alesh,
Yeah, what's up?
can you end the meeting?
So how do I end it?
I don't know. I think as co-host, you might be able to do it.
Okay, I can leave. Let me see if I can end it.
Let's see, where is it? I know. Why don't you stop recording first, and then
Okay, let me stop the recording.
under more, maybe? Is there an option under
Where's
more?
more?
I don't know. Do you
Um,
and the menu on the bottom there? Do you have a more? I
Where-
don't know. I have a more.
I mean, I don't think I have more. Maybe the meeting will just end if we both leave.
Sure. No. Well, maybe. Okay, no, maybe.
Let me see. Okay.
Oh,
Full
okay.
screen.
Maybe I can do it now. Okay. So